Hey,
Hey Rex, welcome back. Yeah, what'd you think?
that was good. I liked there was a lot of things that Lauren said that really stuck out to me, and I have a couple of questions. Um, what outside factors are working against marriage?
Yeah, great question, Rex. Um, Viktor Frankl, author of Man's Search for Meaning, which I think is one of the great books of our time, says near the end, um, I recommend, and he loved the United States, loved the United States, but he still said, I recommend that the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast be supplemented by a statue of responsibility on the West Coast. uh, Profound cultural criticism and insight. I think that perhaps we become too fixated sometimes on individual rights as opposed to responsibilities, covenants, promises, connections with others. Uh, Rights are marvelous. I'm so grateful to live in this land. But uh, when we when we enjoy those with the lack of deep awareness that we have responsibilities to others as well, I think damage is done, and that's one of the dangers. I think another danger that's crescendoed, and one of my dear colleagues, Sarah Coyne, along with Laura Walker, are two of the leading global scholars on media, and they write a lot about what they call technoference and technology impinging on and damaging relationships. I think that, referencing the idea of a time affair earlier, that for some of us, technology, whether it's binge watching TV that's not particularly uplifting or too much time on a smartphone, can be one of those things that creeps in and does subtle damage to our marriage, and prevents it from being everything that it could be. Those are just a couple of thoughts.
That's really good. I completely agree that we are very hyper focused on individual liberty and not really considering the responsibility we have to others, which is actually a responsibility to ourselves. And I really like how you said a lot of sometimes we get carried away in engaging in activities that are not edifying. A lot of that kind of seems to be a product of the individual liberty thing too. That was really well said. Thanks, Lauren. I appreciate that. That will stick with me.
You
Um, I like you mentioned every marriage is an interfaith marriage. Um, how I agree with that because I think we all do have different or varying levels of devotion or commitment to that. Um, is there a way to help equalize that, or I really think that our religion is a very important part of our marriage. It helps kind of be the glue of it. Is there advice or anything you've gleaned from your research that people should be aware of that they should maybe try to level that out a little better?
And maybe even on the flip side, Rex, I love the question. On the flip side, are there harmful things, like pushing and like, hey, I'm up here, and if you just would do this, then you would
That's a
be
good
where I
point.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think we can push too hard, even when our intentions are good. That we've got to be careful about. Um, Again, remembering that Rabbi Sacks himself, profoundly faithful, still says, hey, the religion's at its best when it's lived through example. It's at its worst when it comes through coercion. Those are pretty strong phrases. Best and worst. And this is a man that really honored words and was careful with them. He picked those for a reason. So I think we've got to be very careful to live our faith in love and in relationship. And I think one of the best ways to come to increasing unity is through daily family worship. that's dialogic, not parent dominated like mine is sometimes. And I confessed that earlier in the podcast. But to have an egalitarian, dialogical kind of family discussion around religion and life, real life. Heather Howell Kelly, a marvelous member of our American Families of Faith team and on faculty up there at Utah State, has said family worship is not meaningful every time, but it is deep and meaningful over time. And I think there's so much wisdom captured in that one little phrasing, that aphorism, that couplet, that both in marriage between wife and husband and also in parent-child relationships, we need to allow some room for imperfection in the messy middle and realize, in the words of Maya Angelou, not everything we do is going to be a masterpiece. There are going to be a lot of face plants in the mud, and we just have determination and refuse to quit, you know?
That's really good. My last question would be, what advice would you have for couples who are maybe more secular and considering, should they consider religion in maybe a way of helping their troubled relationship?
Yeah, it's a great question. I will add that in the American Families of Faith Project, in addition to the majority, which are majority shared faith, about 250 of our 308 couples are shared faith. We have 30 plus who are interfaith married. And then we have 32 couples who are religiously unaffiliated, including some pretty potent atheist and agnostic couples in terms of their leanings. And there's a great deal we can learn from these couples as well. For example, I mentioned in passing that, you know, for many of the couples we interviewed who were religious, they've said, if we didn't have faith to lean on, we wouldn't have made it. We would not have made it. And so when I look at some of my friends and some of the families we've interviewed who do not have faith in a traditional way, and nevertheless have built a championship marriage, even without those multifaceted supports of beliefs and practices and faith community, I think there are some very valuable things we can learn about grit and hanging in there and appreciating each other from atheist and agnostic couples. Along with some other scholars, I have my doubts as to whether viewing religion as just an instrument, you know, as just something to help, actually would help. I think that you have to be authentic and real. And, I worry a little bit about maybe the wagon pulling the horse to tell somebody who doesn't have faith, hey, attending church would solve your problems. I think that that's simplistic in approach and probably a false panacea, even though it is tremendously helpful for many couples. So I would, I think, lean in the direction of saying same faith marriages have some things to tell us and teach us about how potent and powerful religion can be as a sustainer and a supporter. Interfaith marriages have some really important things to teach us about conflict resolution and respecting a partner who sees the world quite differently and through a different sacred lens than you do. But yet, strong marriage is still possible. They're difficult, but possible. And from the atheist or agnostic couples, that it is possible with sufficient commitment to build a strong marriage even without faith. And so I'm grateful to each of these three types of couples who have taught us some different lessons, which you're welcome to dig into on the Families of Faith website.
Oh, no. Thanks.
Well said.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you, Loren. I know you've got to wrap up here in a minute, and we've got another podcast here at noon, my friend. But man, we are so grateful for your time today.
Well, I really appreciate you, Liz and Dave and Rex. I mean, I talk slower than John Wayne. I'm a slow, plodding thinker, and I love
that about you. I love that about you.
Just thank you for your kindness, and for having me. Please feel free to cut heavily. I'm kind of like Anne of Green Gables. If only you knew how much I wanted to say and didn't, and still spoke way too much,
You're very good, my friend. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Live and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Bolanos, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.